Hi everyone, welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's Community Talk Show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and our guest today is Beatrice Birch. Beatrice is the founder and executive director of InnerFire, an innovative residential healing community here in Brookline, which offers an alternative choice for people recovering from addictions and traumatic life challenges. Beatrice began her career as a Waldorf school teacher and has 40 years of experience in artistic therapy and counseling, working in hospitals, clinics, prisons, and rehabilitation facilities. Welcome, Beatrice.
Thank you, Wendy. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's wonderful to have you on. I think that some folks know about InnerFire in our community, but probably don't know exactly what you do, so we're going to find out today. You had a long career as a teacher. Teaching in mostly Waldorf schools?
Yeah.
And was there anything, as far as that influence went, was that part of your family life at all?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. No, it was, at one point in my life, I realized I did want to teach, but actually not in the form of education I'd had. And so I worked in Montessori and free schools, and everywhere was offered a job, but I realized, no, this isn't it. And then when I was at university, my mother sent me an article in the newspaper about a Waldorf school, which was in the basement of the church in Porter Square then. It's now presently in Lexington. And just at the top of the article, she said, "This sounds like you." So I went to have a look, and in fact, I really was touched. I was struck by an element of truth. I didn't know what it was, but I aligned with the impulse then. And so when I finished university, I then went to England, where I stayed for 25 years.
And what was the impetus to go to England?
Well, to train further there. I was looking for a form of education that really was healing. Can we educate children and heal them at the same time was a strong impetus for me.
Yeah. And so this was the 70s or 80s?
Yep, 75. It was a place in Sussex called Emerson College, named after Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it was where you could get a training in biodynamic agriculture, in education, Waldorf education, and many other things as well. Yeah.
So it sounds like your family supported you in this.
Yeah.
To send you off there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Did you have siblings?
I have 3 brothers.
Where are you?
I was a third. I was a third, and I remember my father one time when I came back visiting, he said, "You 3 are all so different from each other. I don't know who to believe." And I remember looking at him and saying, "You know, the beautiful thing about it, Dad, is you don't have to believe any one of us."
And
so,
was this outside of Boston?
Yeah, in Concord. I was born in Concord and then lived in the suburbs until I headed out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's different there now these days.
Oh, very different. Very different.
Yeah. It was kind of there was a lot of rural.
Yes, absolutely. Lots of farms.
Yes. You're carrying a little bit of an accent, which is very pleasant. That's something that you picked up in England?
Well, after 25 years, something rubs off.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So you had a whole life in England. And what was it that brought you back here?
Well, my son then, who was born in North Wales, it sounds strange, but England began to feel too small for him. We were then living in Bristol, in the city of Bristol, which is a wonderful city. And they have ships coming in the River Avon and so on, but every little bit of green at one point just seemed to be eaten up by building more and more housing. And then I began to think, he could have skiing and skating, he could have, more in a way. And so in a way, I sort of knew I would return one day. I didn't know how, when, or why. But I think there was a reason I was born here in this country. And I guess I see England as sort of like a time of grace. It was a time to connect with who I am and find myself, separate from anything that's familiar.
Yeah.
And I've had quite a few interesting experiences in England. I treasure the time. But it's good to be back. Yeah. It's good to be back.
Well, also, you got a real foundation in Waldorf education and
Yeah.
anthroposophic philosophy as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And brought that back with you.
Yeah.
And was your aim to come back here to teach in that in Waldorf schools?
Well, at one point I left the Waldorf teaching because I wanted to deepen the artistic within myself, not meaning to teach painting or so like that, but just as a human being, to be more artistic, more flexible, more creative, meeting the child who's in front of you in the best way possible, not treating all the children the same way. And so I had the opportunity to step out of teaching to do what's known as Hauschka artistic therapy.
Yes.
So that was a 2.5-year full-time training with a lot of medical, and it was an incredible experience. And so then I thought, well, I will take that back into school, just to be a teacher in a Waldorf school. But I was encouraged to continue as a therapist.
And when you mention Hauschka, I think a lot of folks are familiar with Hauschka beauty products.
And
body products.
that was Dr. Margaretta's husband who developed that.
Oh, I thought it was her. I thought it was.
I think it was her husband, who was also a nutritionist.
Yes.
But she also developed what's called rhythmical massage therapy. So she was a doctor in her own right and saw the wisdom and all that can unfold in the artistic process. Which over the years, what I've discovered after 40-odd years of working as an artistic therapist is you're really helping the person connect with what I would call their divine creative self. So there's a part of us that's never been wounded. Yeah. And there's a part, if we can help connect that, this is a little bit like being a matchmaker, you know, you find which medium is the right for that person at this time. And that's a whole art in itself. It's really remarkable.
I was reading a little bit about this, and it was much more layered than I knew about, and the type of art that you choose for this specific person. And I know, you know, going to sort of moving into InnerFire, you view human beings as creators, not victims.
You know, no matter what we're training to do, we're also evolving and growing inwardly at the same time. Through these years of experience, you realize that we are creators. And there is a part of us that's been wounded. You know, what would be referred to as the astral body, let's say, the part of us, the center of our sympathies and antipathies. Yeah, I can feel really, really hurt. And people have had such horrific life experiences, there's no question. But if they can touch in on the part of themselves that I still have a choice, I always have a choice.
You mentioned working in prisons, and you've also worked in medical facilities and rehabilitation centers. In the prisons, you worked for I don't know if it's an organization, Alternatives to Violence Project.
Yes.
Right? Now, you brought everything that you know, I'm assuming, to that, and working with the people who were in the prisons. Yeah. A lot of different experiences, I would guess.
Oh, you meet remarkable people.
Yeah.
Remarkable people inside whose sense of self has been so diminished. And it's just beautiful, because I used to go in the third weekend of every month for 12 hours on a Friday, Saturday, and then 10 on Sunday.
Oh, wow.
And you see these men, they come in and they're wrapped so tight like a rosebud, so tight. And you always go around and ask why you're here, and it's, well, my bro told me to come, you know, it'd be good. And after years of doing this, you just know that by Sunday, they're going to be unfurling. And it's beautiful. And that's the creator within them. Having the chance to really listen. There's always humor. It's so serious. It's so profound what happens there. I would go down to Greenhaven and to the Hudson prison. And actually, Wendy, you might be interested to know that I was painting with men in the Hudson prison. And one day, a very beautiful young man came to me. We'd been painting together for a couple of years. And he said to me, you know, I was trying to write to a friend on the outside about this art class, and it's so hard to describe what happens here. Eventually, I wrote to my friend, it's an art class, but it's really a spiritual class. And then he looked me straight in the eyes and he said, this is what I was looking for on the outside. Isn't it strange I had to come to prison to find it?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, you're all seekers. You're all looking for something more than this fast-paced, superficial, materialistic life, you know? And yeah, and many of the people, you know, who wouldn't end up in prison, considering some of the places and the life situations in this country where these people are. So it's a real concern. But when we were starting InnerFire, when I was starting, I remember thinking, what are we going to call the folks who come here? I don't want to call them clients or residents or patients or so. And then I thought of Ian, and I thought, we call them seekers, because they're looking for something more, and they want to get off these psychotropic medications.
Yes. When folks come to you, when they come to InnerFire, you're not an addiction center.
No.
You're not dealing with people who are addicted. So how do they get to you? How do folks get to you?
Just to say, many of the psychotropic medications are addictive. And very, very hard to get off of. So, but just to share, when I had Wendy, 15 years ago, I had no idea I would be doing this. And now we're starting our 10th year.
Yes.
Or we're having our 10th birthday in September. And I was working at another rehab. And clearly I wasn't from the system, but I was bringing the artistic therapy. And it was remarkable what was happening with the individuals. And then there was a period of time where a number of people, unbeknownst to each other, but they approached me and they said, one by one, and they said, I hate being medicated. Isn't there a choice? And I had worked in Europe for these 25 years where we had never medicated anybody.
Wow.
And we use different, what are known as anthroposophically inspired therapies, which call upon the creator in the individual. And, you know, because I'm not interested in fixing anybody. We cannot fix people. But I love facilitating their healing journey.
Yeah.
And so I shared with these people what I could. And then they had their staggered departures. But within 2 years of their departure, 6 of them had chosen suicide. And I have, over the years, seen a correlation with the increase in these cocktails of psychotropic medications with suicide. Because what the medications do is they disconnect us from our ability to think clearly, to have heartfelt feelings, which is why people cut themselves. Will I feel this? Or even intentional doing. And those 3, what I call 3 soul forces, we think, we feel, we do. If you can't do that, if you're so disconnected, well, what's the point in living? And in fact, my cousin, a beautiful man in his 40s, his father had died earlier, and then a few years later, his mother had died, and he loved life. But of course, being the youngest brother in the family, and also on his own in California, and he began to miss his mom. And so he went to seek support, and rather than saying, tell me about it and talk about it, and you know, you will feel sad for periods of time. He was given antidepressants, and one medication led to another, and then another, and then another, and he jumped from the Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, it's we have feelings, and we need to feel, and we need to cry. We all have tear ducts. God, or for lack of a better word, gave us tear ducts. We need to cry. Crying is allowed. We laugh, we cry at InnerFire.
Yeah.
And so then with these suicides, I then realized I've been blessed with my life. I've helped start many things in the UK, and it's been a very rich life, and I love it, and I'm very grateful. But I then realized I have to simply offer a choice. When these suicides happened, it's like, a part of me thought, I'm out of this, you know, and I wanted to hide my head in the sand, but that all these people approached me, my conscience wouldn't let me. But there's a power in saying yes. Okay, I'll do it. I don't know how. And then so much comes to support you in this process.
Yeah.
And I'm in awe time and again. I thought, well, I have to take the best of my life experience and simply offer a choice. We're not telling anyone to come off their medication, and you can even come to InnerFire and stay on your meds if you want. But many people come because they've become zombified by their medications, and their inner fire hasn't gone out, and they want to get off. And so we've helped people off 20 years of medication.
The kinds of resources that you have and the kinds of what you have created to be sort of a container for each, and it's different for each person, I assume, but you've got kind of a daily structure going on.
That's so crucial that there is a daily structure. So everyone comes for a 3-day visit to see, do you even feel safe? Many people have said to me, this is the first time in my life I have felt safe. And so you come for a 3-day visit, a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then on the Friday you meet with all the guides, the staff, and during those 3 days, it's as if you're a seeker in the program. You just dive in, you do everything. You don't sleep there, but you arrive at 6:45 in the morning. And many people, of course, when they've been struggling on their own, they have no order and rhythm, and they're up all night, perhaps watching porn or drinking, and then they sleep all day, and there's who knows what else. So then if they're accepted into the program and we feel we're a match, because you have to really be ready to work. It's a beautiful location in Brookline. We have a beautiful brook running by, and we've got goats and hens, and we have a biodynamic vegetable garden, and we're clearing a wood for a goat pasture. So the rhythm is key. Like, I know exactly what people are doing at InnerFire right now. And you're then in the program for 3 weeks before you begin to taper, if that's your wish, so that you develop that rhythm. So when things can get a little bit wobbly, I know what I'm doing. And so you're up at 6:15, down for breakfast at 6:45, breakfast is at 7, washing up is at 7:30, out for a walk in any weather. And 2 days of the week we build a fire, even in the pouring rain. We can do this, and the seekers take this building a fire very seriously. We also have what we call a morning circle, where we go around and we share how are we doing and what are we grateful for. That what we're grateful for is key. And then at 9 o'clock, you're either in the kitchen, learning to cook with our wonderful chef Tavius, or you're in the garden and planting, sowing seeds, tending the seeds, awakening that, or in the woods, split wood, and chop down trees, and just clear whatever. We build our own goat shed and our chicken coop. So everything we do by hand, so which is a way of grounding you, getting you into your physical body. Because to be honest, really putting my cards on the table, I think we live in a pretty psychotic society. Because psychosis is when you get stuck in your head. You're not in your body. And these poor children are behind screens at such an early age. They're not out playing in the mud and climbing trees and doing all of this. And that's very serious, I think. So the work in the morning is very grounding. And then after, that's till noon. And then after lunch, which one of the seekers has made with our chef, then they all have a rest, and they get a liver compress, which helps the liver deal with the poisons and strengthen to do its job. And then in the afternoon, it's more like an in-breath, where now I do my own inner work. In the morning, I give to the community. It's an out-breath. In the afternoon, and then I do different movement therapy, something that's called eurythmy, or artistic therapy, or music therapy, or massage, or there are various different things, archery. We've got Nettie working with us, who's one of the local clowns. She's wonderful, and Ian Bigelow does archery with us. And they're all things where you have to be grounded, or they work with you where you are. And then in the evenings, we have activities, different nights of the week. There's something different, which is also peer support work, and also very touching, very beautiful. What can happen. At one point, one Friday nights, we go around the circle and we share what we appreciate about everyone in the circle, and then ourselves. And many of these seekers have such low self-images.
Yeah.
To every week hear what different people appreciate about you is remarkable, Wendy.
You know, it sounds like these are, everything you're talking about are so fundamental,
Yeah,
you know, and so straightforward.
absolutely, Wendy.
Really, you know,
Absolutely.
eat really well, get outside, do
Yeah.
some physical work, be with other people.
And eating really well, I will say,
I've heard.
no sugar,
Oh, right.
yeah, no nicotine, no caffeine, right? And they look at me, they say, no nicotine. It's like, well, it is a healing community, right? You know, like,
Yeah.
no. And then they all say, okay, I've been meaning to get off, I'll have to get off.
Wow.
And I'll say, yeah, we'll put up with your bitchiness. It doesn't matter, you know? So,
Yeah.
and it's, but it is a beautiful, it is very tricky, Wendy, to come off these meds. And there are times where we have to go very slow as guides. I speak to the guides as we're like the banks of a river. The seeker is the current. We never block the current, but we're there. So they can bounce up against us and meet themselves by doing so and not to cave, because we have to guide them. We're like midwives. Occasionally I say, breathe deeply and push, right? You know,
Yeah.
but stay engaged.
Yeah.
And when you're feeling awful, you have to get up.
Yeah.
And that makes you realize I am more than these feelings,
Yeah.
which are so awful at times, but I am more.
And you have on your team, you have medical people, you have
Yeah.
some psychiatrists, you've got,
Well, we don't have a psychiatrist. We're also not a medical facility. And that's important to say. But we have a wonderful naturopath named Cliff Steinberg. And and we've had, you know, Nels Kloster has worked with us in the past, and Jesper Brickley, wonderful, wonderful people. And now we've got Cliff with us. And what's so wonderful about Cliff is he's also a guide. So he's chopping wood, he's digging in the garden, he's working with the seekers as well as being their doctor.
Yeah.
So he doesn't see them for just half an hour once every 2 weeks. But the tapering is also very slow. So it's a year program.
I was going to ask you.
So you don't really have to rush. And even we have people come on 8 or 10 different medications, 150 pounds overweight, sort of shuffling their feet and blurry-eyed when they arrive. And it's so beautiful as they begin to taper.
Yeah.
And at one point they'll say, Beatrice, I'm beginning to feel myself again. And it's like, yes, good, but stay engaged. Stay engaged. You're not through it. And even so, sometimes people will stay for 2 or 3 months after the year, just to make sure they don't, there isn't a backfire.
Yeah. And do you hear back from
I do.
folks? You do. You.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
they're doing.
Yeah. And some have gone back. They've got jobs. They're going back to university. Or it's very inspiring. And for some, it's still a struggle. It's still a struggle.
I'll bet.
And actually, I got a call from California at 3 a.m. one time, and it's like, don't you realize there's a time difference? But anyway, and the person said to me, "What's the proof you can fix my sister?" And I said, "None at all. We cannot do anything unless they want to be engaged." But most people do want to be engaged.
Well, I think by the time they get to you, I would think that they've been through so many different things, because it's, there are times, I know, for myself and many other people, there are times when you don't have the strength to make those choices. Yeah. So by coming to you and by being nourished in so many different ways, you build up to that place of having your own empowerment.
Yeah. And Wendy, I think it's also important to mention, when I was asked to present at an international conference in Rotterdam, the title of my paper was "Suppose Mental Health is a Reductionist Term for Soul Health." We're talking about the soul. When trauma happens, it has nothing to do with it. Has to do with the soul. And either I get caught in that in-breath because of what I've witnessed, and I can't breathe out for fear of falling apart. Or if I was sexually abused, I'd be so far out of this body of pain. Of course I would hear voices, and any one of us would hear voices if we're excarnated because of fear or trauma or something like this, And so we're working on a deeper soul level And that's why if you work there, then slowly you don't need these medications. The tricky thing, you have to get off the medications to be able to do that deeper soul work. But you can.
Beatrice, you have gone overseas to do workshops and talks and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you see that as spreading the word? How do you see it?
Well, what I think is important is that I'm not spreading the word about InnerFire. I'm spreading the word about choice. There is a choice. And you need a community of people around you to help you, because it takes such courage. I remember one seeker saying to me, she was 30, and as she began to taper, she said, I don't know who I'm going to find. I've been on these meds half of my life. So there are many things that she hasn't learned to do because she's been dependent on the meds. And there was even a seeker once who said to me, are you telling me it's up to me? And of course my inner voice said, oh yes, it is. But I was just fascinated that he could even ask that question.
Right, yes.
Because he grew up in a generation where it's the pill. We just have to find the right pill to fix you. And it doesn't work in the long run.
It seems like, creating the rhythm and the order and the very sane approach to just living a daily life has such an impact that in some ways you're not selling anything,
Absolutely,
which is such a great thing to look at it that way. It's just you're helping people to come back to themselves.
But I think being in a place, when someone goes into the hospital, Wendy, it's me against the world. No one's going to listen to me, and that's a generalization, so I beg the pardon, but it happens to too many people. And to come to InnerFire where they know we're on the same side, and in fact, we believe in you. And what you're pointing out, Wendy, is, and to be honest, what we're doing at InnerFire, it's not rocket science. It's just the system, in all honesty, and I think most people would agree with me, has become so inhumane. And we put the human being in the center and help cultivate their own inner healing resources.
Right.
So we're not fixing anybody.
Right. And also, everything that you're offering, again, is nourishment.
It's wholesome.
Yes, wholesome and nourishing.
And nature.
And nature, of course, of course, the greatest healer of all.
Exactly.
I also have heard the food is fabulous there.
It is.
It's a rumor.
It is. No, it is. Yeah, it is. It's all organic. A lot of it we grow ourselves. And gut friendly. We're close to the keto diet, but not quite, or the GAPS diet, close to that, really minimal carbs also. But what's so beautiful is the seekers learn to cook. So when you leave InnerFire, you can cook any way you want to cook. That's your freedom. But you can't tell anyone you don't know how to cook. And that's the beauty, because they go home, or many of them have actually moved to Vermont. They don't want to go back to New York City or Hawaii or some other place or country. We've had people from China, Japan, India, Romania. An email from South Africa said even knowing InnerFire exists gives us hope.
We have so many things here in our community.
And that's why I chose to start InnerFire in this Brattleboro area, because there is so much. And when you've gone through the huge challenges to come off these psychotropic meds, you then want to be able to have a job where it can be nourishing and creative.
And supportive.
And supportive. And Brattleboro's wonderful. I'm very, very grateful.
Good to hear. It's always good to hear. Beatrice, thank you so much.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you. This is a great show, huh? Pretty interesting information. At the end of the show, there will be in the credits ways to contact InnerFire. The website, you have a great website with lots of information on it, and other interviews with Beatrice if you'd like to see those. So we will see you next time. Thanks so much for being with us today.